You're listening to the Good Question Podcast with Richard Jacobs. Our goal is to make each of our guests exclaim, that's a good question. I don't know the answer. Because when that happens, it means you, the listener, may be inspired to learn more beyond the interview and to ask great questions yourself that lead to new insights. In this podcast, we cover historical and current anthropology, comparative religion, and history. Welcome, and let's get started.
Hello, this is Richard Jacobs with the Good Question Podcast. My guest today is Dr. Elliot Justin. He's the CEO and founder of FirmTech, and we're going to talk about tracking your sexual health, specifically for men's erectile fitness. So welcome, Elliot. Thanks for coming.
It's great to be here.
If you would tell me a bit about your background and why you chose to work in this particular area.
Well, it chose me. My background, I'm an emergency medicine physician, and I can tell you that short of a heart attack or a stroke, there are probably no emergencies that concern a man as much as a limp dick. So I specifically got involved in this area, though, because in 2015, I left emergency medicine and moved into the field of remote patient technology. I'd always been interested in that. For a while, many years ago, I founded a company called SwiftMD that was the second oldest telemedicine telehealth company in the United States after Teladoc. It's been sold. And I'm really interested in empowering men and people in general with the knowledge that physicians would apply if they weren't motivated by secondary gain, meaning money and what the insurance company wants them to do, or what the insurance company's reward. Basically, our smartphones are smarter than pretty much any doctor in the world, and we should be able to manage most of healthcare independently of physician. We're just not allowed to because of regulations, because doctors and hospitals follow it. They don't want the competition. So I got into this particular area of men's sexual health because many years ago, I tried to neuromodulate human sexuality. My interest at that time was in rehabilitating men or women who had spinal fluid injuries and how to rehabilitate the sexual function. Neuromodulation is, most people think about, the analogy would be cardiac pacemaking. You place an electrode in the heart, and you can pace it. You can override what's going on and control it, the heart. As a matter of fact, keep the heart beating after someone's dead using pacemaking. So if you could do that with human sexuality, it'd be profoundly valuable in terms of the people's quality of life, especially people as they get older.
Quick question here. Does insurance cover sexual wellness for either men or women? Or is this area it's only cash pay? I just don't know.
It's largely cash pay. I mean, they'll cover surgical procedures. And you're touching on something that really angers me, which is that there's no money in sexual health. In the sexual health that most afflicts people, which is erectile dysfunction. If you or I went to our internist and said, gee, I've got chest pain, the electronic health record is going to tell them, hey, here are 15 questions that you should ask. And if you don't ask those questions, the computer's going to say, hey, Elliot, stupid, ask these questions. And the computer's going to tell me other things I need to be thinking about, other heart attack, peptic ulcer disease, dissecting aneurysm, pulmonary embolism. When it comes to sexual health, there's nothing in electronic health record because it's called the CPT code. There's no billing code associated with it. So what do doctors do? They just give out pills. And that's stupid because that's not the way we treat, for example, high blood pressure. You don't go to the doctor and say, my pulse is bounding. It feels really strong in my heart. I feel my heart pounding in my chest. And the doctor puts his fingers on your pulse and his ears on your chest and say, yeah, you're right, Richard. Your heart's really pounding and your pulse feels really strong. I think you have high blood pressure. Take this pill and come back in 3 months. You would think, what the fuck is this? 1900? Do you have a blood pressure cuff in the office here? How about electrocardiogram? How about some blood tests? Because in most of medicine, we expect diagnostic decisions and management decisions to be data-driven. And when it comes to sexual function for men and women, they don't have any data. They can do a Doppler in the office and make money, but that doesn't tell you what's going on when you're trying to have sex. So that's it. So this is not covered by insurance. It's largely a cash business. You can go to your doctor and get pills, but you don't know whether you really need the pills. You don't know the right dose of the pills. And the doctors don't think about how important sex is to people because doctors prescribe, there are two classes of medications, antidepressants and antihypertensives. And most of the medications in those class of medicines, and those medicines are taken by half the country probably, maybe more, they have an impact on men's sexual performance. The doctors don't even think about it because they just don't think that sex is important, even though it really is. So about 3 years ago, a professor at the University of Utah asked me to come up with a way of counting the number of erections that you have at night is a leading indicator of your cardiovascular health. A leading indicator in medicine is a really powerful phrase We treat associations in medicine. High blood pressure is associated with heart attack or stroke. It's not predictive. Declining number of nocturnal erections. I mean, I'm not talking about, we all have morning blood, but one is not enough. I mean, a healthy man should have 3 to 5 nocturnal erections per night. And if that number goes down, that man's likelihood of having a heart attack in 2 or 3 years is 50%. Why do you
know if you're sleeping? How do you know what's going on?
How do you know? That was the challenge. That was the tech challenge. So what we've invented is the world's first monitor, wearable, smart sex test wearable. This isn't some novelty. You wear it overnight. It'll count the number of nocturnal erections. It'll measure how hard they are. And it'll tell you how long they last. Now, when this doctor approached me with this idea, he was just interested in nocturnals. And my thought was, hey, I want to know what's going on with having sex. Why limit just nocturnals? So technologically, we had to change how cock rings are engineered. So it wasn't just about developing the sensor technology and the interface, but we had to change something that's made the same way for the last 150 years. So the cock rings that most people are familiar with, they buy at a sex toy store, and these hard silicone O-rings, like a gasket for your penis. And they're uncomfortable. They pinch, they compromise circulation, and they're made out of hard silicone, and they can only be worn for 20 or 30 minutes. And doctors call them, you'll love this, penile constriction bands. I don't know about you. So, we had to, in order to count nocturnal erections, we have to come up with something that could be worn overnight. So our rings are made out of, not out of silicone, but out of a soft elastomer. They're designed to allow the arterial flow into the penis, not to choke it off, and only to constrain the venous return. So that means that they can be worn for hours. So in addition to coming up with the world's first monitor of sexual health, men's sexual health, we've also reinvented a cock ring.
Yeah, I would think it would be dangerous to wear that for too long because you're not getting blood supply and the tissue would die at some point, right?
Yeah, that's the problem with the conventional rings. They can't be worn for 20, 30 minutes. Ours can be worn for hours. So there's a paper presented, independent paper, at the American Urology Association convention 2 months ago, where a doctor looked at 600 men who used our ring for more than 4 hours with no complications. So we sold 13,000 products, maybe more than that by now, and we haven't had any complications for men wearing the ring for hours.
All right, so the protocol is the man puts it around him when he sleeps, and then it's like an aura ring, I guess, but for down there, and so
people call it a dick bit. Yeah, it's like an aura, exactly. Only it can be worn during sex as well. So it's not just worn overnight, it can be worn during sex. So with the data, men can then measure the impact of diseases, diabetes, hypertension, atherosclerosis, as reflected in how hard they are, how long they last. Men can also measure the impact of medications. What's the right, blood pressure medication, antidepressants, the PD5 medications, which are Viagra and Cialis, the biggest sellers. What's the right dose? Are you benefiting from it? Are you getting side effects with no benefit? Because the device makes what's going on objective. Men can also measure the impact of supplements, exercise, etc., upon their sexual health. So it's a game changer. It's taking urology and sexology into the 21st century of data-driven care.
Interesting. So it can track many things, or it can tell you about many things. So what's like a typical healthy response that you'd see versus an abnormal one? Like what are some situations that you've observed in the data?
Well, a healthy response is to have at least 3 and more likely 5 nocturnal erections per night. A healthy response is we grade erections on a 1 to 10 scale. A healthy erection is a 10. I mean, a man, even an older man, should be rock hard. It's not normal to not be rock hard. And so if we're 1 to 10 scale, if erection falls below like a 7 or 7.5, it's apparent. That's just not rock hard. But we've had men who have gotten cardiac catheterizations because of this. They've seen that their nocturnals are going down, or they aren't having any, and therefore they probably likely have a cardiovascular problem.
Why do men get multiple erections at night? What is the body doing? Why does this happen?
Well, we don't really know. But the erections occur during REM sleep, which is interesting because they become a marker of quality sleep. So there's something else people can track, erections. But the thinking is that, the penis needs blood. And if it doesn't get blood, it will atrophy. So periodically at night, the body is sending blood to the penis. And that was to the physiology of that. What actually traded, that's what happens. What occurs is that the blood is sent to the penis. And men who don't have nocturnal erections, they have a problem. I mean, the man that have nocturnal erections over a long period of time, his penis will atrophy. So,
but why wouldn't it get supply in? Well, I guess it would get blood supply even in a flaccid state.
You need erection.
So does blood go into the corpus the corpus cavernosum normally, or only when you get an erection?
It really only fills up when you get an erection. It's there, but it only fills up when you get an erection. And it needs strong, smooth muscles in order to hold it in place. So that's actually the advantage of array. Array compensates for the weakening of smooth muscles. Occurs with aging. It's called penis leak syndrome. And we all get it. Every man gets it as they get older. So, but you asked me the question of, what actually triggers nocturnal erections, and we don't know.
Well, it sounds like, again, the body knows that it needs to happen, so that's why it triggers it.
Yeah. And then Richard, the body knows one of those sort of black box answers. We don't really, it's fascinating how little we actually know about sexual performance as opposed to other areas of the body that seem more complicated. We know a lot more thing about the kidney or the heart than we know about a penis or the clitoris for that matter.
Interesting. So what if someone gets like 3 or 2 erections at night, or 1? How much is that? Is it far worse to have no erections at night versus 1 or 2 or 3?
It's worse. Having no erections at night, not normal. And it could be due to significant cardiovascular disease, which should be ruled. A man who's having no erections at night needs to see a urologist and or an internist cardiologist. A man who has there are other things that can cause it, though. I mean, you can alcohol abuse, substance abuse.
What about sleep apnea, stuff like that too?
Sleep apnea is associated with erectile dysfunction. Taking sleeping medications, Zolpidem, Ambien, or Trazodone on a regular basis can interfere with nocturnal erections. And it's not healthy. So someone's having 2 or less nocturnal erections per night, they need an assessment. That's what's so valuable about the technology, because it's making problems apparent that might be invisible to someone. Or someone might know they have a problem, but the data is signaling to them, hey, do something about it. And we send people notifications. I mean, if a man is having no nocturnal erections, we'll send them an alert.
What about, if you wanted to try to do it maybe holistically, so you look at porn twice a day to give yourself an erection twice a day, at least so you're getting something and improving your health. Is there a way to build back up your sexual health, by, again, doing stuff during the day?
Depends on what the boss is. There are many things that can be done. I mean, don't drink to excess, don't substance abuse. If you have high blood pressure, diabetes, comply with your medication regimes, although ascertain whether the medication might be interfering with your sexuality. If you're overweight, lose weight. But your point about getting erections during the day is important, because sex is just overall, it's a smooth muscle function, not a skeletal muscle function. So going back, you might remember from high school physiology or college, that you can exercise your school muscles, skeletal muscles. Those are the muscles that you can control. You go to the gym and work them out. You can't exercise your smooth muscles, you have to use them. So, in terms of the gastrointestinal system, if you fast for 30 days, your gastrointestinal smooth muscle will atrophy, and you can't suddenly eat a large meal. You'll get sick. Well, in terms of your penis, if you don't masturbate or have sex, the smooth muscles will atrophy, even if you have nocturnals. So it's important to, sex really is a use it or lose it, as are so many other things in the body.
What happens if a man has sex and then he goes to sleep that night? Will he have more or less erections? Like, what would happen?
And our data indicates that a man who has sex before he goes to bed, which I try to do myself every night, his number of nocturnals will go down by, statistically, according to our data, 1.6, or 1 to 2 less nocturnal erection.
Does that affect the quality of the sleep at all?
We don't know.
Interesting.
That's a very good question. We don't know whether men who have sex before they go to bed have less REM sleep. I've not seen any studies on that. Some might have studied, but I'm unaware of any studies. We do know, on the other hand, that men who have sex before they go to sleep report subjectively better sleep.
Okay, interesting. What about people that are on a workout routine? Let's say they weight lift and they're using like significant weights, not terribly heavy, but they're doing, again, weight training on a regular basis. Does that help improve sexual function? Does that improve the number of erections?
Anecdotally, yes. But that's what we hear. I still not call my patients, but they're really customers. For example, my chief medical officer reports that both his hardness and duration of his nocturnal erections goes up if he hasn't exercised to his max, so either doing some CrossFit routine, or mountain biking. Well, I've heard about that from other customers as well too.
I mean, something else too. What about encouraging guys to sleep with a pillow that goes from between their knees to between their ankles, so that if they do get an erection at night, there's room for it to be in that state and not get choked off or be uncomfortable for them?
Well, I don't I mean, usually that recommendation for a pillow is because it is to relieve back strain.
You're a side sleeper. That happens, and because your legs are right there on top of each other, there's not really room for it to happen.
I can't visualize that because if you're sleeping on your side, the erection is above where your thighs are, unless you're really overweight. If you're really overweight, all right, really being overweight interfere with erections? Well, that is a controversial question because there are doctors who feel on the basis of observation that men who are significantly obese get retraction of their penis.
What about room for the testes, though? I mean, so during an erection, what happens to the testes? I would think they need to be free and not, caught up in the legs or whatever. Maybe it would facilitate the erection. I don't know.
I don't think that the legs really interfere. A man would have to have balls that are hanging really low for his legs and cross them for his legs to interfere with his testicles. I mean, in general, what happens to testicles during erection is that there's a slight retraction of them. They get pulled up a little bit.
Okay, so there should be room and it shouldn't be a problem then.
Right.
Okay, interesting. Any correlation in sleeping position? So if you sleep on your stomach or your back or your side, does that affect the number of erections you have?
Well, our assumption is no, but no one has ever studied it.
Interesting. Okay. So you have this device, so someone wears it, and then they, what kind of results will they get? They'll just see like the number and the duration and also like a firmness factor of the erections, like it shows you all three?
We have an app. We're in Google and Apple stores.
Google Play With Yourself store. We're kidding. The Play Store. Yeah.
The Play Store, exactly. How appropriate. We provide people with an overall we call it the Erectile Fitness Score, which is a computer algorithm interpretation of the number of nocturnals, how long they last, plus how hard they get during sex and how long they last. And we ask people to give us at least 6 readings, 4 nocturnals and 2 sex readings, in order to come up with an accurate score for them. We also provide separate scores for sex erections and for nocturnal erections, how hard they are, how long they last. Like 3 weeks from now, we're adding another score, which is the quantity of blood in the penis.
What is that modulated? Like, what makes an erection harder or just kind of like half-assed? What's happening to make the difference?
Blood. It's the amount of blood. The blood fills up the corpus cavernosa, which is essentially like empty sacs in the penis. The blood fills them, and then the smooth muscles around the sphincters, around the veins of the penis, hold the blood in the penis.
Okay. All right. So you encourage people to wear this when they're sleeping, but also during sex too, to characterize how they're functioning?
Correct. They can measure their performance. But a ring will also intensify a man's pleasure for 2 reasons. One, the ring holds more blood in the penis than a man can get into the penis with any amount of oral, manual, vaginal, rectal stimulation. Beyond rock hard, there's cock ring hard. And a lot of guys don't understand this. Nothing can get a man harder than a cock ring. The more blood is held in the penis, the harder you are, and the more sensitive the penis is, the more intense the pleasure will be. The gay men get this. 90% of gay men who have sex regularly use cock rings regularly, and only 10% of straight men do. The straight guys are missing out.
Yeah, but what if it makes you finish too early? Does it do that, or does it prolong it?
It prolongs your erection.
Oh, okay. So it actually helps. Okay. If you go prematurely or something, I see what you mean.
Well, it'll keep a man hard about 4 to 5 minutes longer. Think about that. The average erection goes after climax. The average erection is gone in 25 to 30 seconds. With a ring, what we test is our ring. We call it our maximum performance rate. The average man stayed hard over 4 minutes after climax.
And it doesn't impede you being able to climax and get everything out of you?
No, it doesn't choke off the ejaculation. It actually prolongs the ejaculation. If you prolong the ejaculation, it makes the orgasm more intense.
Okay, interesting. So why it is your product?
It's game changing. I mean, we're doing 2 things. We're taking urology and sexology into the 21st century of data-driven care, and we're providing men with, I want to call it an aid or a crutch, provide men with something that's going to significantly enhance their pleasure and their partner's pleasure, because the men are going to last longer and have a more intense orgasm. It's a profound confidence builder and pleasure and satisfier.
So why does your ring not choke off the blood supply like other rings? What's different about the construction of it that it allows the arterial blood to still flow? It's
made out of elastomer, not silicone. So in general, silicone makes you adapt to it, whereas elastomers adapt to you. So the elastomer, I mean, it can be cranked on it. It can be pulled through the loop to choke it off. But if men wear it the way it's supposed to be worn, it doesn't interfere with the blood flow into the penis. It just interferes with the blood flow out of the penis.
So I guess it's more comfortable than a traditional ring, right?
Yeah. No, the traditional rings they pinch, you want them off. This ring was designed not only to, as I said before, not just to prolong pleasure, but to keep the man comfortably hard after climax. So if a guy comes too quickly, he'll stay hard. But if I'm 71 years old, at my age, that's not an issue. But what my wife and I like about it is after I climax, I'm still hard for 4 or 5 minutes. And that's a different mindset.
I gotcha.
If you will, I'd say it's a more romantic mindset. It's a more intimate mindset. We spend more time horizontal than we did before. The male mindset is come and done. Guys in orgasm wants to hey, who texted me while I was having sex, or let me have a drink, or whatever. But a guy who's still hard is thinking differently. He's still in the moment with his partner.
That makes sense. Okay. Are there any contraindications or people that shouldn't use it for whatever reason?
There are a few. There are men who have Peyronie's disease, which is a natural curvature of the penis. There's potential that it could not fit the right way. There are, I'm trying to think about, obviously a man who has an STI, a man who has urinary tract infection.
What about someone that's circumcised versus not? Does that make any difference?
It doesn't make any difference.
Really? So it works both? So even if you're, as they would joke, an egg roll or not, doesn't matter?
Doesn't matter.
Hey, you like to make jokes? I figure I make some too, so why not? Yeah.
I haven't heard that since, decades. That's funny. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. What about if someone is, over-endowed versus under-endowed? Does it matter?
It does. And we've had, we sold over 13,000. We've had 5 or 6 men who are simply too big. And we have a size and girth calculator on the website so people can actually see where they are. If a man is in the 95th percentile or more, the ring might be too uncomfortable, or it can tear more easily. They might get less use out of it than a man who's average. On the small side, we've had 2 men who were too small, just for fun their money.
Okay, I got it. So do people need a doctor's prescription for this, or they can just buy it off your website? Where can people go?
You can go to MyFirmTech, MyFirmTech, MyFirmTech.com. People would like to speak to me personally. It's Elliot, ELLIOT, at MyFirmTech.com.
Okay. Any other, if it's proprietary, I understand, no problem. But what else do you have in the works? What's coming in the future?
Sure. 2 things. On the male side, we're going to be adding 2 more sensors, and we'll be to the device, and we'll come out with that probably realistically second quarter next year. We're going to be able to tell people what positions they're making love in, for how long they make love in those positions, how many calories they're burning. We'll also be able to exactly measure the girth, the diameter, rather, of the penis. On the female side, we're coming out, we have a test device called Clitique. It's the world's first monitor of clitoral health, and it'll take us a year to bring that out. We're measuring clitoral blood flow. Our assumption, we know that women have nocturnal clitoral erections, and our assumption is that the device will help deliver to women the same type of medical knowledge about their sexual health that the male device, the tech ring, does for men.
Yeah, I guess that's the analog in women, yeah. That's really interesting. I guess it probably would be a similar signal. That's very, very interesting.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I guess maybe it's a silly question, but is there any interest from mainstream medicine or from, insurance as a preventative, measure? I would guess probably with Fitbits and things like that, insurance may give discounts if you use one. Do you think it would be useful to you, or do you have any interest in?
We are applying for that, but it's a 2-year process. So you have to have research. So there are 4 research papers that have been presented about the value of our device in assessing erectile dysfunction. And they've been presented at the American Urology Association, the Society of Sexual Medicine North America, European Society of Sexual Medicine. And those papers will form the base of our application to the FDA for approval to get insurance coverage. It's frankly very bureaucratic. It'll take 2 years.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it will, yeah. Okay. Well, very good. Very good, Elliot. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, and interesting subject. And, it sounds like what you're doing was going to help a lot of people. So I appreciate you being here.
Thanks so much, Richard. That was a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to the Good Question Podcast. Please email support@thegoodquestionpodcast.com if you have any referrals to great guests for us to interview. Visit thegoodquestionpodcast.com to hear more interviews. And please help us spread the word by rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen to this podcast.